Okay, before I start, I want you to turn to your neighbor, touch their hand, say that your hair looks great today, touch their shoulder, ask their permission first before you touch them. Let them know that you're acknowledging their presence, that you're in this room together, everyone's in this room together, and we're about to get into a serious conversation. So say, hey girl, hey guy, how you doing? Let them know that we're in this room together and our presence is unified. And I want you to turn to your neighbor and I want you to say, it is our duty to win. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. So lame. Turn to your neighbor and actually mean the words that is coming out of your mouth. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Give yourself a round of applause. Nice. So I live on 2nd Street. 2nd Street is home to the best memories of my life, playing from dawn to dusk, going inside. My mom's like, Bria, you smell like outside, take a shower. Hanging out with my friends, the best relationships I can ever build, playing cops and robbers with toy guns, all these different things that I did as a young child because it was all on 2nd Street. I lived on 2nd Street, and I had the best childhood of my life because of 2nd Street. But I lived on 2nd Street, and it held the worst memories of my life as well. People ask me, Bria, how do you get into activism? Like, what started you into this path of always being angry all the time? And I said, activism is a collective of things. It's not just one thing that pushes you to advocate for things. It's a collective. But I can only think back to a vivid memory of when I was playing outside with my friends on 2nd Street, and I heard gunshots in the distance. But me and my friends didn't jump. We didn't run inside. We continued playing because that's what was normal on 2nd Street. We normalized hearing gunshots in the distance. Children normalized hearing gunshots in the distance because that's what happened on 2nd Street. Fast forward a couple minutes, we're still playing with the rocks and all the other things that we had outside to make this elaborate scheme of games that we had. And I remember seeing a man running down 2nd Street, no shoes, no shirt, bloody on his chest, with an object that I could not identify in his hand, running down 2nd Street towards me and my friends. I didn't freeze because these things happen on 2nd Street. These things are normal on 2nd Street. He stopped in front of us, and we identified the man to be East because he always walked around saying, East, East. And we're like, oh, that's easy. East, here he is. He stopped in front of us. His eyes were raging, and I felt something for him. East was bloodied in front of me and my friends with an object in his hand that I didn't identify, but he was crying out to us, but we couldn't help him. We were children. He turned around, hopped our fence, ran into our backyard, and hid there. We continued playing because these things are normal on 2nd Street. Fast forward a couple more minutes, and we see cops. They're rolling down. We don't move. That's normal. And they hop our fence. They follow East, pull him out, and handcuff him. That memory is so vivid to me because I had to go back to myself and say, Bria, those things are not normal. That shouldn't have happened on 2nd Street. You and your friends playing outside so innocent with this childhood manner should not have experienced that. I should not have seen a man run up to me with my friends with a gun, an object I didn't even know about yet. I remember my mom put me and my other siblings in a program called Chapter 220. You take inner city kids, you bust them like 25 minutes outward to diversify a school that's predominantly white. I did that program, and I'm still currently in that program. And I remember when I was younger, I would always find myself being the only black person in the room. When we're learning about slavery, it was kind of awkward because they'd look at you like, and I'd be like, I'm learning this too. Like, I don't know the information. Like, how can I help you? But being in that room and being the minority and feeling the weight of other people, I knew what it was like to experience racism, oppression, discrimination, identity misrepresentation before I can even articulate it. At the age of 6, I knew I was different, but I could never tell anybody why I felt that way. When my teacher read I Have a Dream, she cried and she said, Bria, you matter too. That's when I knew. You thought I didn't matter before? Moving forward, growing up in a predominantly white school, I always felt myself at a distinction of isolation because I was too white for the black community because I liked to read and because I talked proper. And I was too black for the white community because my skin differed from theirs. But I'd go home to Second Street, and I'd go to all my Second Street friends, and they'd be like, let's play outside, but they would turn a cold shoulder because I got the good education. Because I didn't go to a school where fights broke out every single day and police walked around armed. Second Street is home to the best memories of my life, but also the worst, because I reminded myself that I come from a community that's plagued by violence. I would go to sleep and hear gunshots, and that's my good night tone. Second Street holds the best memories of my life, but also the worst, because I would walk around my community and see people laying on the streets, nowhere to go. Liquor stores would open, but grocery stores would close. Second Street holds the best memories of my life, but also the worst, because I could never articulate the anger that I felt. I was so angry. Because I'd go to a school where they didn't care about hearing gunshots. That wasn't a problem for them. I'd go home, and that was a problem for me. I could never feel valued or validated in my anger because I didn't have anyone to talk to. Another speaker said that someone asked her, what's wrong? No one ever asked me that. So I bottled it over and over until I felt like I was blown up with rage and just disappointment and that nothing mattered. And I'm a black woman. I will never experience what it's like to have privilege or experience what it's like to have anything in the world that's justified because I live underneath a narrative that's told me I can't. Because I felt those things, because I was rooted in Second Street and I wanted the best for my community and for my parents and my family, I turned to activism because that's the only way that I felt like my small voice could be amplified. Second Street helped me with activism. It reminded me that we're all rooted in a foundation, that our foundations are what fuels us forward. But we can't do that without 3 principles that I've created, of course. 1, reflection. 2, digestion. And 3, creation. Can you guys say it with me? Reflection, digestion, creation. Reflection, digestion, creation. RDC, reflection, digestion, and creation. 1, reflection. You have to reflect on your past life in order for you to move on. You have to reflect on your past life in order for you to move on. I was so strung up on the fact that kids would call me the N-word and I could never ever say anything to them because I wanted to fit in. I was so strung up on the fact that my teacher would patronize me because she thought my family couldn't afford things. I had to let go of that anger and that resentment that bottled me up and felt like I was closed off. And I had this generalization that all white people were bad, which a 6-year-old should not have. Reflecting 10 years back, I was 8, Obama was elected, and I felt like I could enter this new stage of revolutionary change. But I was still holding on to the baggage of what Second Street has taught me, that your life isn't fair. Injustice is so prevalent, and people aren't together enough to destroy it and dismantle it. But reflecting on these type of things, when I would see people sleeping on the streets, I would hear gunshots in the distance. I would hate my skin because people said I was too dark. Those are all reflections. I had to bottle that up. I had to absorb it. I had to come face to face with my biggest insecurity and say, you suck. You're not letting me move on. Because you're here, I can't be the better person that I want to be, that I envision myself to be. You suck. Reflecting on that, I moved on to digestion. Digestion is the hardest one, I would say, because you have to absorb those pains that you are reflecting on. You have to come to a conclusion with yourself that I want to move forward and I want to be better. But how can I do that if I'm not clinging on to the person next to me or clinging on to this person, and so we can do it collectively? During the summer, I went on the March for Our Lives National Road to Change tour. And I remember it happened because they asked me to come to dinner with them. And I said yes, because I love food. Like, food's great. And they asked me to join the tour as well to speak about inner-city gun violence and bring intersectional approaches to the conversation of gun violence. I remember calling my mom, like, Mom, I have a big opportunity for you. And she's like, who are these people? I don't know them. And I remember getting on the tour, and we went to different places like El Paso, where I talked to undocumented youth who were too afraid to even go to the polls because of what their legal status was. And going to New York and Harlem and hugging a woman whose son was just shot and killed a few years before. And going to Southern LA when another black individual stood in my face and said, "You're a sellout." I had to absorb all these different people's traumas. I'm tired of opening up my phone and seeing a new headline every single day, but I'm absorbing it. I'm taking it in, I'm reflecting on it because I want to make the world a better place. In order for me to move on and do that, I need to know. We need to stop being comfortable. Be uncomfortable to know. I'm begging you. In order for things to progress and move and advance towards a bigger idea, we need to make ourselves uncomfortable in our situations. We need to listen, to understand and not respond. 3, creation. How can you make society better? What can you give back to the world? What can you contribute as a human being? Whatever you can do to give back to the world that you're pushing on so much. For me, I wanted to make sure that the voices of those who were being overlooked were amplified. I wanted to create expansive platforms for girls at my school who are being ridiculed every single day. I told them, no one ever asked you what's wrong. No one ever asked you how you felt. So I went to my website I created. It's called honeyfreetea.com, and it gives girls of color the platform to speak about injustice that they have suffered. If I could just create something so small that would benefit just a small amount of people, that I have done good for the world. I have reflected, and I have digested, and I've created something that people can benefit from because I want them to benefit from it. Moving forward, why do I want young people to be into activism, get into activism, and advocate for changes that they want to advocate for? I remember I was speaking in a town hall. I forgot what city it was, but the lady came up to me and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so young. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be focused about college." Well, if I'm so young to speak about an injustice, then I was too young to experience it. If I was so young to experience that, how can I reform that for other young girls so they don't have to do the exact same thing that I did? It's about connecting with people, like you said before. It's about having those conversations. And today, I know our phones are much more cooler than actually going up to someone and be like, "Hey, your shirt's nice," but how can we start an effective dialogue with other people? How can we connect with them through conversation? And I was always afraid to do that because I thought that my voice wasn't valuable enough, because representation matters, and I didn't see that. I didn't see young, powerful black women revolutionizing the game and understanding their worth and doing things for themselves, and not conforming to a narrative that was created by other people. Young people need to be in activism because our lives are on the line. We envision what we want our world to look like. Do you envision yourself in it? Because I do. If you are indirectly affected by something, it does not give you the excuse to say nothing. If you don't hear gunshots outside of your house, you still have the power to do something. You still have the power to use your voice or tell someone else, spread the rhetoric that I'm spewing today, and let someone else know about it. It goes back to comfortability. We're stuck in this confinement, this box, because we're afraid to step out of it and open our mouths and talk to other people and understand traumas and digest them and reflect on ourselves, because comfortability is all that we know. But I had to step out of that comfortability. If I wanted to make the world a better place, I had to be uncomfortable, to learn and to build and to develop and to grow and to prosper and to help people. Because if we're so stick to one standard, nothing is done. Nothing gets done. So reflection, digestion, creation, we all want these 3 principles to create a foundation that we're all going to stand on in the future. Because in order to become powerful activists or powerful people, we need to come face to face with our accountability. I'm never going to speak about someone else's experience if it's not my own. And if I have that platform to amplify the voices of those who do not have it, I will share it. We're in a country where we have so many different people who come from so many different places, perspectives, insights. It's a melting pot of people who want the same thing, life, and the quality of it. Of course, I will share it with my brother and sister because their life matters just as mine. I will never deem them less than, because they look different. And that was something I had to tell myself. I was so conditioned to people deeming me less than that I would do it to other people. But in order to move forward as a movement and advance as a movement, we need to let go of those narratives, of those biases, and these perceptions that we have that are created by our own ignorance. We need to hug people more. We need to hold people's hands. And we need to have effective communication and conversation. Because I don't want to die young, and I know no one else does either. Can you guys repeat the 3 principles? Let's see if I'm not boring you. Reflection, digestion, creation, RDC. Going back to 2nd Street, it was the root of who I am right now. I was ashamed to say that I lived on 2nd and Center because of what came with it. But I'm not ashamed anymore because I was molded and crafted into this awesome individual because of that. And if we forget where we come from, our concentric point of how we started our lives, we will be lost in trying to figure out what to do next. 2nd Street shifted me and put me in this place of accountability and acceptance and love and confidence because I was able to be the best person I can. And I'm still reaching that because I understood what I came from and how I developed forward and how activism fueled me to do that. And so I'm speaking to a lot of young people that are sitting in these seats, and I want to remind you that you have the power to do that. You have the power to reform narratives that are bounding you to oppression. You have the power to speak up and use your voice, even if you're not directly affected by an injustice. Your brother and sister is. That gives you the justification to even step into the conversation. But I want you guys to all find your own 2nd Street. Maybe it's not actually a street, or maybe it's not actually a memory. Maybe it's a feeling that you felt when you saw something terrible on the news. The feeling that you felt when the rage would fill you and you're like, this shouldn't be happening. What is your root? What is your foundation? What's going to propel you to move forward in this movement? Unless we're not collectively working together as a unified front, is tomorrow promised? Find your 2nd Street and remember RDC. Thank you.